Hello, welcome to the Shelly Show. I'm Shailendra, and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Hope you're safe and maintaining the social distancing. As with most changes in life, there'll be a positive and a negative impact on society as artificial intelligence continues to transform the world we live in. How that will balance out is anyone's guess and up for much debate and for many people to contemplate. The transformative impact of artificial intelligence on our society will have far reaching economic, legal, political, and regulatory implications that we need to be discussing and be preparing for. Determining who is at fault if an autonomous vehicle hurts a passenger or how to manage a global autonomous arms race are just a couple of examples of the challenges to be faced. Let's discuss this topic with our panelists from three different parts of the world. My first guest is Rudeon Snell from SAP. Rudeon has a passion for solving business problems using technology. He's currently the lead for go-to-market for the industries and customer advisory business across EMEA for SAP. He's over 20 years of experience in technology space. So let me bring him on. Hi, Rudy. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks, Shirley.
Good stuff. Then I have Avik Sarkar, Dr. Avik Sarkar. He is the former head of data analytics cell and officer on special duty at Niti Aayog, a premier policy think tank for Government of India. Let me bring him in. Hi, Dr. Sarkar. How are you?
Hi, Shelley. How are you doing?
Very, very good. And then I have Laurence Liew, director at AI Singapore. He's as director of AI industry innovation. He's passionate about getting companies in Singapore to adopt AI to stay competitive and relevant. Let me bring him in. Hi, Laurence. Welcome to the show.
Great to be back. Thank you.
Brilliant. My last guest is Brent Schneeman, a CEO, a storyteller. Brent has presented at UT McComm School, and he's from the US and has worked on NLP and data science activities. Unfortunately, he can't join us. So we will have to be there with these three guests of ours. For all of you watching this episode, for you to view this episode and other sessions that are run on emerging technologies, I would request you to follow me so that you can be alerted when a live session is on. This gives you an opportunity to directly ask questions to the guests. So please press the follow button if you're watching on LinkedIn. If you're watching us on Facebook, press the like button. And if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe the channel and also press the bell icon. So here we go. Let's start talking about AI and its impact on the society. So there are some social success stories that have really impacted the society. What are these? So let's start with Laurence, because he is focusing on AI as a whole. So Laurence, what all success stories have you seen? And we've got enough time to discuss this, Laurence. So please go with as many stories as you've got, 1, 2, and that I will have for other panelists as well. So Laurence, your turn.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so in AI Singapore, our one of our flagship programs is the 100 experiments, and in the 100 experiments, we have helped. We have deployed about 20 projects for various organizations, from private entities to government entities, all in AI, obviously, and some are more operational, some will impact society or end users directly. And we have the usual ones in insurance fraud, micro lending, medical imaging diagnosis, and so on. But the one that's really closest to our heart this couple of weeks, and because AS Singapore has gone into what we call a phase 2, where we are reopening our economy from COVID. Of the malls, the retails, and factories are now able to restart their business, and they need to do it safely. One of the projects that we have that started as a side project from our engineering team and later became so-called what we call AI brick is in human poses. Original intent was to detect what pose the person was in, whether is he smoking, for example, in an illegal location, or for example, during a doctor-patient interaction, did the doctor touch the patient, and if so, please alert the doctor to wash his hands after interaction with the patient. But because of COVID-19 and the need to do social distancing, I suggested to the team, can we pivot, what we have to be able to detect distances between individuals and groups, and the team, said, well, they think it could be done. Within 2 weeks, we came up with that capability, and today I'm happy to share that HP is restarting their factories in Singapore, Malaysia, initially. With our Fine Post product, and if Shelley, you could show the video, that would be great. So we are working with HP. They have implemented this in one of the locations that you are watching now. Is actually I believe it's the area where the staff are probably just getting out of the factory line and putting their personal belongings to make sure that they are safe. This is the only public one that we can show. Obviously, HP has more deployed throughout the factories. But as you can see, this is one AI application using computer vision to actually help society restart post or even during COVID.
Okay, that's an interesting one. So this is purely around COVID, and any other use case that you've seen, any other success story that you've seen, Laurence?
Well, we have one where it's to target it's micro lending. We have helped a company here in Singapore that have a very traditional legacy business in loans to actually go digital, and they now have an app that's able to generate some sort of credit score to allow a certain segment of workers in Singapore to take on micro loans of $50 or $100 easily, right? Without nearly immediately. So those are some of the more societal, impactful projects that we have done.
Okay. Rudy, do you want to share any of the success stories that you've seen?
Yeah. So I think one of the great things about AI is that it has the potential and the ability to essentially transform every single industry that we know right now. So think about energy, financial services. Laurence just highlighted healthcare, manufacturing, retail. What's also powerful about AI is how you need to think about it from the perspective of using AI with other technologies to solve problems and drive outcomes that matter. Don't use AI for the sake of AI. Use it as a means of actually positively affecting change, right? So, I mean, we see this with a lot of companies today out there. So think about Blue Dot, which is a Canadian AI startup. They use their platform and their algorithms to focus on analyzing news reports, social media, government documentations, where AI then learns to actually detect COVID-19 outbreaks. Yep. And in fact, Blue Dot's algorithms got so good at detecting it that they were able to spot COVID-19 outbreaks several days before the CDC or the World Health Organization issued their public warnings, right? So that's a great example of affecting change and driving outcomes that matter. Google's DeepMind is another one. So benevolent AI uses their algorithms to help build drugs that can fight the world's toughest diseases. And even now, it's actually helping support the efforts for treating coronavirus.
Yep.
So it's the first time a company like that is actually focused on products that can tackle infectious diseases, right? So that's another one. And then just think about it from an energy perspective. So GE Power uses big data, machine learning, advanced analytics, Internet of Things as a synergy of technology to actually build the Internet of Energy. And their goal and ambition is to drive this whole notion of digital power plants that are able to run at optimal efficiency and that can help supplement the world's energy supply. So many industries are being impacted by AI, and that's one of the fantastic things about it as AI becomes part of our world, changing the world and driving outcomes that matter.
I think both of you have mentioned the COVID example, which actually is quite a good example because of the fact that in this statement where you don't want to go near to the patient, people are able to use robots in order to do that, or create some kind of a machine that can interact with the patients. And one of the things which I read and put it on an article was that they could actually predict the wet lung far ahead of time so that that can be treated and it doesn't become a wet lung in the end. I think that's another work that has been done in the market space. I must say that there are around about 40 people watching this episode at the moment. So guys, if you've got any question, please mention in the comment section and I'll take that question. Over to Dr. Avik. Avik, any success story that you've seen, and I think you've seen a few in India as well.
Yes, so there are so that's one area which I am completely focused on now in my current roles, in my last role and the current one, which is mostly like focusing on AI applications for the societal good. So there are a lot of applications that are happening here. Some of them are of the line like traffic violation detection. So you actually go on and detect the exact type of traffic violation that is happening on a junction, like whether you are not wearing a helmet for a bike, or you're crossing jumping a signal, or you have more riders than what is allowed on a bike. So there are different types of violations that are there, which are all been detected automatically, and the notices are going to the people in a complete automated manner. So there is very little human intervention in the whole process that is there. So this has been some of the smart city initiatives which have been put in two cities, which is Ahmedabad and Surat, which have been doing pretty well. One of the other applications which I really love is that the monitoring of the road quality. So they actually are trying. Another state in Andhra Pradesh have already implemented it. So they actually fly a drone with cameras over the whole stretch of the road, and based on image classification, they are identifying what is the quality of the road. It is a good road, it is the average road, it is a bad road, and based on that, they are taking up the repair activities there. It is also helping a lot because they can do this monitoring quite often, as compared to say they will do monitoring once in 3 months or 6 months. This sort of monitoring can happen on a monthly basis of the roads, and they also get to know, like say sometimes contractors will tell that there is a stretch of road which is actually not broken, but they will tell it was broken, and they will go and do the repair there. So that is an aspect that has stopped here. Another interesting aspect in this drone-based road quality monitoring is also that they are using a radar-based system there, which actually identifies the depth of the road. So if there is a on a particular road, there's a depth, and based on that depth, you can estimate what is the amount of material and cost that is required. And the estimates that come from the contractors, because usually contractors do this work, has to be in that, say, plus 10 or 20% range of what is the estimated cost. So you know that the contractor cannot bluff you in a lot of the estimates that they are giving to the government for the repair work. So there are a lot of these activities that have been happening on the government and from this. Other than that, there is a lot of other things in healthcare, agriculture. So you talk of a domain, there is a lot of AI happening there. I feel that it is much more needed in an Indian perspective, because we really have scarcity of skilled resources for doing a lot of these activities. So when you have AI intervention, So you actually have an intelligent gadget. Say if you are training a human and that person is going and doing these activities, maybe the training and the skilling time is much higher. But then you can build a AI system that can go in the interior villages or rural areas and get a particular task done. Definitely, there is a human in the loop to ensure no damage is done. So those sort of aspects are taken care of. But then this is actually helping a lot, and is very much needed for a country like India.
Perfect. When you mentioned about understanding the status of the roads and how bad they are, I think I would remember. I remember one of the projects which I did, which was very funny, very interesting. Not funny, very interesting. It saved a lot of money for the government.
Yes.
So what they were doing was they were rolling out fiber optics. And rolling out fiber optics, what they wanted to know was in different places around the country where they will have to dig deeper than one place to the other, and where there is otherwise someone has to go into each and every household to find out how and check the land. Instead of that, we just use various services to understand the state of the land and how much deep and how easy will it be to dig the land, instead of utilizing someone to survey it and find out what actual the state is at the planning stages. I think that was another case that I remember from old times. Any
Exactly.
other use case or success story that you guys have seen, which has actually impacted the society at a very large level? Please share with us. Anyone? Okay, let's talk about the failures, and that is very important. We always talk about the success stories because they're good to talk to, but let's talk about some of the failed projects which people did try to execute, but they failed, and it was a good learning. So, as I read somewhere, failure is not the opposite of winning. Failure is just a step towards winning. So, any of the failed use cases or failed success stories that you guys have seen? Avik, I'll start with you this time.
Yes, so I think when we are embarking on this sort of project, failing in the first go is definitely the what happens immediately, because when you're working with governments, they have invested money and they would first want to see the output maybe in 3 months' time. By that time, it's not enough to even understand the type of data and get enough training data to train the system and do a lot of those things. So we often face these challenges of the false positive, like in this system that I told you, automatic identification of traffic violation. There are a lot of false positives that were there, like people are getting notices when they have not actually done that traffic violation. So that was going on for some time, and it took over 2 years for the system to stabilize. And I think this is there in any system that is there. Like you initially will fail if you are trying to launch it very soon. I think that is also one of the aspects that I think where the lot of the regulations has to come in about like when you can launch an AI application on the ground. Currently, there is no matrices that are there. We leave it to the gut feeling of the developers, like they feel the model is good enough, and then release them. And often there is a lot of citizen anxiety that they have to face. I can talk from this example only. Like there were different groups of people who at some point in time in the initial phases, in the first 6 months of the rollout, they felt like okay, they had to just take this notice that was there of the traffic violation, tell that they are not there, and they would accept it based on some images that they will see, and based on the images they will see that actually the person was not there, and some other system had actually wrongfully identified them. So this happened in the initial stages. So what happens is that if you have things of this nature happening, then the citizens tend to lose trust in the system. So,
Yes.
and if this goes on for long, then the trustability of the systems falls, and the government actually loses a lot of faith if they are rolling out these services. So this can be a big deterrent because government invests a lot of money for such services, and if they fail in the first place and they are not able to win the trust of the citizens for whom it is designed, this can be a big deterrent for these services to say move from one city to other city and things of that nature.
No, I totally agree with you. It is the confidence building, and in terms of the government organizations, it's even more, because if people don't trust the system, the chances are they will not use it, and that is very, very important to gain the trust of the end user, the guy who's actually going to use. And there in Australia, here we've got something called citizen experience, and that's a big point that the government is actually focusing on, because they don't want the citizens to be impacted and not getting the best of the best experience. And I think that's very, very true. Any success story you've seen, Rudy, or any failure that you've seen, Rudy?
Yeah. So I think an important point that we need to raise is that, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? It's important to understand that with any project, and AI is no different, with progress comes setbacks. And what's equally important is that we learn from those setbacks. That's the famous saying goes, I never fail, I either succeed or I learn. So AI can't stay in a lab forever. It needs to operate in the real world, and with that comes inherent risks. The problem with regulation is that it's just not able to keep up with technology progress. This is why it's incumbent on industry actually to show maturity, to come together, and to take it upon itself to address the challenges that is posed by AI. So think about instances where AI has gone really wrong. We see self-driving cars killing pedestrians by failing to actually detect the pedestrian. There's the creation of deep fakes, or there's this notion of chatbots failing as a result of language abuse and how it was misleaded by society on social media. We see issues around gender and racial bias, especially with facial recognition software. There's healthcare failures with incorrect diagnosis and incorrect medication assignments that could actually kill patients. There's AI-powered robots that fall over in live demonstration. So there's, just as there's successes, there's numerous amounts of failures. The positive thing that we are seeing, however, is that the failures are becoming less and less as time progresses, and the success stories are becoming more. And this is no different to any emerging technology in the past. If you think about the elevator, if you think about the motor vehicle, if you think about the first notions of flight, look how many times the Wright brothers tried before they succeeded. So that is how technology evolves and progresses and grows over time. What we need to think about is, how do we actually control AI's release into society so that we can keep the trust component of it. And Avik made a great point earlier about how important it is for us as humans to trust the outcomes that AI-powered systems provide us. And that's going to be the key to AI success. So think about it from a perspective of running pilot programs, going in a phase 1 release, a phase 2 release. So the point here is to release, to learn, to iterate, and then embed into society to actually make a difference.
Okay, I totally agree with you that we need to go in a released phase, but the only difference with Wright brothers taking doing a 5 or 6 or 10 attempts than having a person killed over from a self-driving car. I think they're two different places, because here we are able to here no life was lost, but here one life was lost just because the car decided to go into a different direction. So I think those failures need to be contemplated and made sure that we are very, very sure about the technology before we put it on the road and start the self-driving component of it. What do you think, Rudy, about that?
Yeah, so look, no technology introduction is without risk, right? So think about how take some of our most ambitious projects. Take, for example, manned space flight. So the Challenger was a absolute disaster. You know, it cost lives, and yet we are still pushing forward. We are still exploring those boundaries. We are still that's the nature of exploration and progress. It comes with risk. So what we need to do is mitigate the risks to make sure that we can do whatever is possible to avoid loss of life. Accidents do happen, but it is the frivolous and the discarding of protection mechanism
Mhm.
that actually people will frown upon. And that's the key here. It's not the loss of life per se, but has everything possibly been done to ensure safety as we push forward for progress? We see this now with the push towards landing people on Mars, right? Commercial space flight. We see this every single day. So those are the things I think that we need to take into account as we drive forward here.
Okay. Lawrence, what do you think about the failures? Any failures that you've seen? And I'm sure you would have seen a bunch of those.
Well, the I mean the well-known one, I think both Rudy and Avik has mentioned, and you know the I guess one of the early very popular failures or well-known or infamous would be the Microsoft one, right, where it became racist within 24 hours. And the recent cases would be obviously Amazon recruitment system and even Apple credit cards also had biasness built in. Over in AI Singapore, we have a team that is aware of these issues, and for each of the projects that we look at and evaluate, we are very careful. In the early days, before Singapore came up with the governance framework, the AI ethics and governance framework, internally, like I said, we were just more aware and more careful of potential biases and ethical issues. Now, with the formal introduction of the AI ethics and governance framework, we embed that into our processes and make sure that each of the project that we approve, we have a checklist that say, to make sure that we don't get into those ethical or biasness issues. But that is still very, very early days. We are beginning to integrate explainability or biasness toolkits as part of our workflow to make sure we're able to sieve that out early. But ultimately, it still boils down to individuals, whether is it myself, my team, to say, hey, this project sounds funny, it's a bit fishy. I think we should take a step back. So even up to today, we still get a lot of requests for facial recognition or putting up cameras to detect potential customers that's walking through retail malls and so on and so forth. And we always will have to ask, do you have the consent of those that are walking by? And one of them was very innovative. They will record, but they will not use. They will only use and process if you give a thumbs up.
Mhm.
So you actually stand in front, they will show you. And if you agree that you want to be shown and you give a thumbs up, then they will start profiling you and sending you ads that's targeted at you. If not, then they won't do anything. So I think users of AI systems are beginning to be more aware. And we as people who are helping companies to implement some of these things have absolutely, we need to be aware of all these issues.
Okay. You mentioned a very interesting point about algorithm bias. Before I just talk about that, I would like to say that there are more than 30 people watching this show at the moment. Guys, if you've got a question, please shoot that in the comment section and I'll take that question definitely. And also, to the audience, guys, if you've seen any success stories or failures that have significantly impacted the society, the AI projects that you've seen, then please mention them, and we will be more than happy to discuss and share it with the other people who are watching this show. So please mention your any success stories, any failures that you've seen that has impacted the society in the comment section. Coming back to the algorithm bias, how do we deal with that? What are you thinking about that when you're talking about algo bias? Do you want Avik? Do you want to have a go at that?
Yes, so algorithm bias is definitely one of the important aspects that has to be taken care of, because that, as I was telling you just previously, like people trusting, I think that starts from the aspect of the algorithm bias, or if you use the term maybe data bias, because
Mhm.
algorithms are like just the maths. They inherently doesn't have any bias. It depends on what we feed into it that we get back out of it, and often we are all in a hurry because we are all working, and whether we are working as Accenture or Singapore AI or SAP, we are working under fixed budgets, and in that fixed budget you have to complete the project in 3 months time or 6 months time. These timelines are there. You have limited budget to collect data, and because of these aspects, I think we have to cut corners at times on the data collection, and that really leads to some of this bias. We tend to collect data which is easily available, but that might not be always the best representative data for the population. Like say, if you are, as Lawrence was talking about facial recognition, say if we take a shopping mall, and people who come to the shopping mall and their pictures are taken maybe with consent, as he was telling, it's a very good system to have. We take their consent and take their pictures that they will be used for some training purposes. So it will be heavily biased on people who frequently visit shopping malls, and
Yep.
so the section of the society who doesn't frequently visit shopping malls, then the data will be misrepresentative of that thing. So there will be if you will know well, there are racial classes which has been discriminated across various geographies because of these features and economic features and things of that nature. Localities where you are staying, facial features, ethnic features, and other things. So this becomes the form of the bias. It doesn't always happen that you go actually door by door and collect samples of data. You usually start from somewhere. Say in the famous example of Google photos, when they tagged some of the people as gorillas. It was just that there was more photos available of a certain type that they could train on, and so that's all leading to the bias. I think the data is at the core of it, and I think this problem will remain, because what has to also happen is that currently a lot of the organizations, when we think about deploying AI, it is more of a vendor-led deployment. The vendor comes in, they does the job, and then they go out. It has to be a more of a partnership things, where the people within the organization also has to play a significant role after the deployment is over, and particularly on the data part. They have to understand where the data is not adequate, fill in those data over time, and also possibly retrain the system, take random samples out of the predictions every week or every month, depending on how critical your system is, and then reevaluate those cases. I think this is a very important aspect that has to come into the life cycle of AI, which currently is not coded. It's like some people might do it, some people might not do it, but there is no regulation which is telling that this must be done.
Lawrence, what do you think about algo bias?
Yeah, no, I agree totally with Avik. I wouldn't recall it algo bias. It's really data bias. I mean, the
Yep.
algo is standard throughout, in that sense, right? What changes the algo doesn't change, but what changes the weights is really the data that's being used to train, and very good example would be in my office in the National University of Singapore. Some of our newer buildings, we started outfitting the facial recognition system for entry into the office, And we work with a local telco that had a partnership with a Chinese company, and they implemented that. Great, it works for me, no problem. But there is a segment of university students and staff that is not Chinese background or ethnicity. They are not even local, the typical Indian or Malays. We have, for example, Iranians on our campus, and for no matter how they try, the FR system just cannot recognize his face.
Yes.
Okay, so the data biasness is a big issue, but it is also an opportunity for AI companies. What we have noticed, what we've seen is that no matter how big a AI company is in China or the US and so on, if they want to come into Singapore or to India or to any country, Indonesia, they need to localize. And that's where the local AI companies and startups have that advantage. They are already there. Okay, they probably have better access to the local data sets than any foreign AI companies coming in. And it is because of this localization requirements of the data sets that I think give a lot of opportunities to AI companies within the country to actually build out quickly a strong foothold, right? And hopefully, position them well for growing bigger in the future.
Rudy, what do you think?
Yeah, so a lot of great comments being made here by the participants. So this notion of AI bias is probably one of the greatest challenges of our time, right? And it again speaks to this. The key thing for us as society is the trust we have in technology because of the outcomes. And Avik mentioned this earlier. If I don't trust that the technology I use is going to actually give me the outcomes that matter and that are right, I'm just not going to use it. Right? Imagine using a faulty weather app in the morning to check what the weather would be like. You're just not going to do that if you don't trust that it's actually going to be accurate. So fixing bias in AI is really hard because inherently people are biased, right? It's a human thing, not an AI thing. And just like AI algorithms, so AI algorithms, they're like textbooks. They both have human authors. And as humans, we transpose our biases into the algorithms by data selection often, right? And we cannot at this point have an exhaustive way of improving the types of biases. But what we can do is make bias part of AI algorithm development. And right now, it is not mandated part of it. It's like this whole notion of ethics being part of technology, and its implications being part of it. That is optional at best. And the first part of solving any problem is actually understanding and recognizing that there is a problem, right? So bias mitigation must be part of the development of AI algorithms. It cannot be an afterthought, and we need to do our level best to improve the ability of those algorithms to be bias free. So more to come on that, but the implications and the effects of biased algorithms in our society is very, very real. And it can be disastrous for people's lives. I just read last night in the New York Times that somebody was arrested in the US, falsely arrested because of a error in the facial recognition algorithm, right? We see, we spoke about AI failures earlier. I think there was an experiment run where the United States Congress was pushed through AI algorithm, and 40 members of Congress was identified as criminals, right? So think about it from that perspective. This is why you see today there's this big push by a lot of tech vendors to stop selling their facial recognition software to police departments, because they understand the implications of you can have 1,000, 10,000 success stories. If you have one or two failures in that, those are lives that could potentially irreparably be damaged.
Okay. Um, Very well said, guys. I am thinking of asking the audience where they have seen algorithm bias or a data bias that has impacted them, if they've got any stories. I've got one story for me, and I'll tell you from experience. I was working for this large retailer, and we ran a campaign on wine. And one morning I woke up, and in my email box, I had a wine campaign. And trust me, I don't drink wine. So I shouldn't have been. And one of the criterias was that someone who doesn't drink wine should not be offered wine, because that's not correct. It's like if someone is a vegetarian, you should not offer him a non-vegetarian offer. So I was offered a wine, and I was like very, very upset. So I went off to office, and because the selection and everything was done by one of my guys, I called him. I said, "Well, what happened, Fred? What did you do?" He said, "Nothing." He said, "Well, you just selected customers for wine, and you selected me too. And I don't drink." And he knew I don't drink wine. I never drank wine in life. He said, "Okay." I said, "Well, then there is a wrong selection. There's something wrong in the data." So he goes in, and we were very upset. And I thought, I don't know how many implications, how many answers do I have to give now? A couple of hours later, he came to me and he said, "Shelly, I don't know whether you drink wine or not, but you bought wine twice in last 14 days. I said, "Is it?" And I thought, yes. I had gone to one of my ex-bosses' housewarming, and I had bought a wine. And I had also bought a wine beforehand because I had to take it to one of my friend's place. So I bought wine in span of 14 days, which meant that I was an eligible person. So if you look at the bias as an individual, I don't drink wine, and if someone offered me a wine to drink, I will never drink it. But here is a case where, though I say I don't drink wine, I still bought wine, which means that I became a candidate to be offered wine. So imagine if there is a machine, a robot who's trying to talk to you in a discussion, and he's accessed all the data behind it, and he thinks that you were a very good wine conversationalist. I will fall in the very first argument because I've got no idea about it. But the data says something else. So I think we need to think about those areas as well, how that can be addressed whilst we are looking at, answering algorithm bias and all that stuff. Okay, guys. So everyone else who's watching this, guys, if you've got any questions, put in the comment section any success stories or failures that you've seen in the AI space that has impacted the society as a whole. Please mention that. So, guys, quite recently, we have seen a robot dog, a robot dog. I don't know whether you've seen that. So where is the future? What is happening as we go forward? What do you guys see? Any future projects that you see which will really impact the society? Um, let's start with Rudy this time. Rudy, any future projects in the horizon that you see?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what we're doing is we're transitioning to this whole version of an AI first world, right? So what I mean by that is that right now, mobile technology is part and parcel of life. We are in a mobile first world. And what
Yep.
we'll soon see is us exiting this mobile first world and moving into this AI first world, where AI becomes part and parcel of life, right? So with the advent of technologies such as 5G, quantum computing, you will see this infusion of AI in everything that we do. So what's great about AI is the potential that it has to unlock value in any industry. A lot of companies and organizations start off with AI imbued automation as starting points because it's quick ROIs. You're able to showcase value rather quickly. But in future, the true synergy value that we'll get from AI is how it interlocks with other technologies. And that is where it's really going to become powerful. So think about machine learning with computer vision, combining with IoT and big data in order to actually solve problems that matter, right? Think about quantum computing, which will almost act as a nitrous oxide injection to AI, because it'll just exponentially increase AI's capability and power. Same with 5G, right? So those would be the platforms upon which the new business models in future will be built, just like Apple built the iStore and the iPhone on the 4G technology base, right? So the applications of AI is truly limitless. I think what we need to gear ourselves towards is how are we using technology like AI to solve problems that matter. We need to focus on value delivery. We need to focus on improving the experience for people. We need to focus on adding value into our consumers' lives and almost think about how are we building a better world, right? How are we envisaging these multitude of delightful possible futures, picking the most amazing ones and then pulling our present forward to meet that future. I always joke with my teams about imagine how impoverished this world would have been if we didn't develop the technology of the musical instrument in the time of Mozart and Bach and Vivaldi, or the technology of the oil painting in the time of Van Gogh, right? So these are the tools that we have at our disposal, and we're waiting for the next Van Goghs and Mozarts to enter the world and create a better future for ourselves.
Laurence, what do you think? In the next 5 to 10 years, where is it all going?
AI, like I've mentioned multiple times, it's really a tool that we as humans and in the society eventually will be using it on a daily basis. Whether you're aware of it or not. I mean, even today, even in this call, there are multiple AI technologies at work. Making the stream delivery better. On the fly, fixing the audio to make sure it's clearer, and so on and so forth. If we look out, 4, 5, 10 years, what are the major areas that AI will play significant impact? I think it'll still very much be in the most impact. I feel will still be in healthcare. I always like to use this example, right? We will get to a day where every morning you wake up, you go and pee in the toilet, and you will know the state of your health. Just before we came on the show, we had this conversation about whether on cancer and can be cured, or is it just a treatment. I think eventually what we'll get to know is that the AI system will tell us we think there's something wrong, but we may not be able to completely eradicate cancer, but the system will be able to tell us that, please go and see a doctor within the next 6 months.
Yep.
We will be able to detect something as life-threatening as cancer 6 months or 12 months before it becomes any danger. And we can detect it so early that we can just pop a pill or just go for a simple operation and get rid of it, and there's no health. And we won't die of cancer anymore in that sense. We may not be able to cure it, but we can detect it so early because of AI, IoT, 5G that we can eradicate death from a major killer like cancer. So I think healthcare will be one of the greatest benefit of the AI technology coupled together with IoT and 5G.
Okay, before I go to Avik, I will explain something which you've just touched on, Laurence. That in the morning we go to pee and figure out whether how that helps and how are we going to live with that. I was talking to a client in Korea a few years ago, and we were talking about that those guys have they used to have washing machines. They used to sell washing machines. They changed the model from selling washing machines to renting washing machines. So we started talking about how about utilizing IoT? And he said, yeah, that's a good idea. So what do you do? So what you do is because you're getting all those washing machines there, you should collect the IoT information for the washing machines as well. And then suddenly your next step will be providing washing powder before the washing powder finishes. And also, before the machine dies, you know that the machine is about to die and you can send the machine. And I was sitting there and thinking, I said, well, can we extend this? He said, what do you mean? I said, why don't you start doing air purifiers as well and give them an air purifier free? He said, what do you mean? I said, if you give them an air purifier free, connect that to your servers, so you will also see the quality of air in their house on the basis of how much air is being purified. So yeah, that's a good idea. I said, but what's the benefit? I said, wait a minute, there isn't a benefit. He said, okay, why don't you give water purifiers free to them as well? Where are you going with this? I said, we'll give you water purifier free as well. So what you're going to do is you will understand how much water is being consumed by the family. And if you can use all the three quotients, you can actually create a healthcare service for them. Even before they know that they're going to fall sick, you will be able to provide them with a service that they're about to fall sick, and so ambulance can reach in time beforehand, before an accident happens or before anyone falls sick. So that's where the society is going to get towards. And I think COVID is a great place where it's just given us a wake-up call on that. So I think that will work quite well. Avik, what do you think about the
Shailesh?
future, 5 to 10 years?
Shailesh, sorry, if I may. Shailesh, if I may, just quickly before you step off that point, sorry, Avik, I just wanted to highlight something to Shailesh. What's fascinating about what you just mentioned is that, it brings about this incredibly important debate that's going to rise and become much more contentious very soon around data ownership and to a larger extent data privacy, because the idea is, even though you want to build services on this data and you want to benefit and offer those services to people, the question becomes, is it really your data, or is it the people's data you want to build these services for? Because nowhere in what you've just discussed have you offered them the option to actually opt in or opt out or sell their data. And what we might see moving in future is an entire new economy developing based on people's personal data and how people actually sell their personal data to organizations for value-added services. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject. I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, Avik.
No, I think Rudy brought a very interesting point, and let me just tell a couple of lines on that, and then I'll come to the original question that you had. So there is actually a lot of debate going on paying people for using, say, Facebook or Google. Say when you write a review on Google, it's actually helping make Google stronger, because their recommendation they can then summarize based on a lot of feedback and other things, and that collective information is helping. When we are tagging photos on, say, Facebook, by hand taking this picture that I see in front of me, hand taking that this is Shelly, this is Rudy, this is Laurence, then actually I am spending a lot of my effort, though I am doing it for the people I care for and I know, but it's actually a service that they would have otherwise had to pay for. So I'm doing a lot of that. So there is actually a debate going on that people get paid for social media usage. It might be in cents, like when it might not be in dollars even. It might be in cents, but even though it might add up to some amount of money to pay some bills at the end of the year, maybe not end of the month. So having said that, the other aspect that you're talking on, I quite like the peeing example that Laurence brought up, because I worked on a very similar peeing use case when I was in Singapore, and this was from way back in 2014. The narcotics board over there, the regular drug abusers who were there had to come every week to do their P check to see whether they're on drugs or not. So I was in Accenture at the time, and so the project that we did for them was to identify their risks level. So high risk, medium risk, low risk one. The low risk people could come every 6 months, medium risk could come every 3 months, and the high risk ones would actually need to still come on a weekly basis for giving their P samples to test whether they are using drugs or not. So and I think things of those natures have been used, because prior to that I was at IBM, and IBM had, I think, done it in some city in US, I forget, where they had put some devices for old age care, where these devices were fitted onto some of the elderly people, and their entire body stats were coming. Basically, IoT sort of data was coming in. So whenever there is something that is going outside the normal range, then they will take an alert and send the type of services like as you are telling. So this sort of idea has been happening in bits of pieces. And so the IBM example that I was talking of, it was, I think, quite some time back. It was about 2010, 11, around that time frame. They were doing it based on rules at that time. With more AI coming in, I think such services will increase much more, because we can have much more intelligence to the system. But I completely agree with Laurence. Healthcare will see a lot of drastic change. We will. In India, where we have about 40% of our workforce engaged in agriculture. Agriculture will see a shift change, because it will be linked to the agriculture insurance. It will be linked to giving advisory services about when to sow your crop and when to harvest things, automatic monitoring of the health of the crops and things of that nature, so that crops don't get spoiled. EdTech is a big area where I see a lot of interventions coming in. And then there are the smart city applications, which already there's already happening a lot in India, and I'm sure, like, Singapore is known for the CCTV cameras. So, yeah, so there's a lot might be happening there once you have the camera feeds, and you can detect images from the camera feed. So I think a lot of interventions will happen over the time, freeing up people's time to do things, so that they can. It will be good to see that if people, that their time getting freed up, they use the time for empathetic activities rather than making it only on profit making. I think that will be a sad part if people just use these AI technologies and then end up just increasing their profits and not focus on the empathic bit, because people's time will be freed from doing, say, regular activities, and so that will be sad. So we have to see that the empathetic aspect in customer service or citizen service, be it the government or a private player, I think that aspect has to increase much more.
Good stuff. As you guys mentioned, what's going to happen in next 5 to 10 years, but what is going to happen in the real future? So if you go beyond 20-25 years, are we going to live with robots in a society where there will be equal number of robots, as we watched in some of the movies, where who knows who's a man and who's a robot? Where are we getting towards? Is that science fiction movie scenario getting towards a reality? And that's my question to you guys. What do you guys think? Is it where we're getting towards, or is it still we're far away? It's like still 100, 200 years away, where we will have a sci-fi kind of an environment. What do you think, Avik?
So there is a lot of this robo fest and there are a lot of robo movies which I show in my class. I take a class on AI and society, where it shows like particularly for the household maid, those sort of activities are being done by robots completely, and then we see on one end robots taking up one of the jobs. So these are basically interesting aspect to see, like when people's time are getting freed up, are they getting good available alternative job options or not?
Mhm.
I think that will determine a lot whether this we adopt more robots or not. Otherwise, it will be more of uh, like a challenge, like people protesting against them, not allowing things to get robotized. But robots, I think, is good. It takes up a lot of free time. Like say, if I have a maid who comes in at say 8 in the morning, and I have a habit of say waking up say at 10 in the morning, then I am not dependent on opening the door at say 8. And so it gives a lot of flexibility for whenever robots are doing things, because you're not dependent on someone else's schedule. So that ease and flexibility is definitely there, but we have to see with the people whose jobs are getting lost, how they are been placed, because these people have been doing primarily very manual work. So if you take away the manual work and they are not able have good skills, then where do we place them? I think that balance has to happen in the society. That will also depend on how robots go about in the future.
Well, to be honest, to answer some of what you've been mentioning, I think there already are those iRobots which are like cleaning the house.
Exactly.
They're
Mhm.
already there. But I'm talking about real robots. I'm talking about real human beings who could behave, act, react like humans, not necessarily doing a particular task. What do you think about those? Is that
So you're talking more about general AI. I think general AI is still some time, because we are still talking about narrow AI applications. Maybe we can load a robot to do say one cleaning task, to say or five type of tasks, but then having a general intelligence where the robot can just come in and understand human instruction and follow everything. I think that will be at least, I think, 20 years or so, where that technology, it maybe not 100 years, because technology and its development is going also at a very fast pace. At least 20 years where we see such things moving, such things are happening in research, moving from research to a productized version where people can start using them.
okay? Lawrence, what do you think?
Well, I think not 20 years. I think it's even further out, maybe 100 or 200 years before we can even get to artificial general intelligence.
Mhm.
Today, today there are already the narrow AI, the iRobot, and so on. Right? Even your phone is smart enough to ask you to remind you of certain tasks and when to leave and as a personal assistant. But if you're talking about artificial general intelligence, um, it's probably going to be very far away. I personally feel. But then also I think we may also want to think about decoupling our human physical form from that intelligence. So in the end, that AI may not exist in the form of a humanoid shape, right? It could exist as your phone, right? Then would you call that your robot? As it is, the narrow AI exists in many forms today, from iRobot all the way to apps in your phone. But if you're talking about humanoid looking AI like data in Star Trek, uh, well, I think if we were to get to anywhere there, it will probably be 100 or 200 years away. I know there are some famous personnel in the AI world that's predicting 2045 before we get to super intelligence. Personally, I don't think so. A lot of research is going on, but even today, right, our best deep learning neural nets, like I always like a quote from one of my colleagues, is nothing more than a pattern recognizer. It has no intelligence. It's just recognizing patterns in the data.
Okay. Rudy, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think that AI is going to change the world more than anything in the history of humankind, right? More than electricity or fire. I mean, that's the famous quote from Kai-Fu Lee in his book AI Superpower. So I think what we'll find is that issues will become much more prevalent, such as privacy, AI rights, data ownership, job, you know, the regulation of new types of industries we have never imagined before. And what's fascinating about it is that as per Moore's law, AI will get better and better at a very much an exponential rate as it embeds itself into our society. So right now, take as an example, $1,000 buys us the computational capability of roughly a human brain, right? That's 10 to the power of 16. By 2023, that same $1,000 will buy us the computational capability of the entire human race. That's 10 to the power of 26, right? So, what we as human beings are terrible at is understanding how to think exponentially, because we are wired to think linearly. And things that we think might be 50, 100 years out could be as close as 15 years out. If you think about the rise of other technologies such as 5G and quantum computing, that will just accelerate AI's development exponentially, right? So there's only a couple of trillion-dollar industries really out there still. So you think about energy, autos, space, biotech, nanotech, um, wellness, robotics, and if you think about all of those emerging and converging and synergizing, what we could look at as we move towards 2050 is this development of what we call artilects, probably, right? So this is in a utopian society where AI has advanced to such a degree that it is really able to make a lot of humanoid decisions for the best of humanity moving forward. And that is nobody can say whether that will or won't happen, because we don't know what the exponential push other technologies might give AI. So I mean, there's a lot of research being done out there about what this future utopia could look like. If you think about Physics of the Future by Michio Kaku, think about Industries of the Future by Alec Ross, think about the fantastic book, The Artilect War by Hugo de Gares. I think what we need to get our heads around is that our world might move into a class society where you have um, these artificial intelligence constructs, you have the human intelligence constructs, and you have these cyborg type augmented human intelligence constructs, and those three will have very different agendas about what is best for humanity moving forward. And I think it's a fascinating time. Is the famous Chinese saying, "May you live in interesting times." I think we live in very interesting times.
Okay. Okay. That is good. Let's quickly get to some of the questions that we can see, and I'll keep it very specific to this topic. Let's start with the last one. There is a comment from Chirag Singhal. Hi, Chirag. He's saying hello all. There is a message from Nawaz Fazal _AI on Twitter. He says, does this call for a new future with Doctor Who code? How can we close the gap in AI med literacy? Who wants to take that?
I think, I mean, today, yes, a lot of AI is still programming, whether in Python or Java or C or C++. But I think eventually there will be a lot of systems that could be built just by asking the AI to actually build. So you basically give instructions to the AI to say, can you please do it this way, build this, and it'll be built. So you don't really need to have coding skills per se, right? You just need to tell the AI system, what you want, and off you go to build. I think we'll get that. It's that's quite doable. Doctors who code, my personal physician actually codes. He's a 50+ doctor, right? And he codes. He just showed me, hey, Laurence, this I code in Python, in Perl, in MySQL. So yes, there are doctors who actually can code even today. Not necessarily AI, but yes, there are doctors who actually code. But I think really moving forward, there will be a lot of tools that will be made available to not just doctors, but any professionals who can ask the tool, use the tool quite easily without coding, like what we know traditionally, to actually build up smarter systems.
Okay, what do you
No,
think?
but I think for Laurence, this is a aberration, because Singapore is the only country whose head of the state, their prime minister, can also code. So I am not surprised that there are 50+ doctor can code. So I think it's a wrong question for him. So this is a country which is aberration. I think that doesn't happen in other countries.
What do you think, Rudy?
Yeah, so I think Laurence is spot on with this, in the sense that what we'll see is this move towards more being able to imagine the possibilities, and then the coding happens in the background. So if you think about computer programs in just 20 years ago, right, when I was at varsity, and we were having to develop in C++ and Java, and write assembler code, and things like that. Right today, the UX is completely different, and the UI for developing those sorts of things is completely different. It's plug and play. Anybody can do that. And we're going to see the same thing with AI. We'll see that it's not going to be necessary to use the skills in order to actually do the development. It'll be more a case of, what do I want to use this for? And the AI will do it in the background.
Okay.
Right. I mean, very good point, right? I remember, started coding with Visual Basic and then with Delphi, right?
Yeah.
The early days, you actually have to literally draw the button and X,
Yeah.
Y coordinates and so on, right?
Yeah.
Today, you just drag, drop, that's it. You have a button, double click, enter the code, and you're done, right? So, yeah.
No, but my point there is a bit different, and I think with AI, coding will become quite easy as we go. So we've been into the 4GL, fourth generation language, with likes of SASs and the Rs of the world. I think we're going to go to fifth generation, where you will have to code less and less. On the other side of things, from doctor's point of view, I think there'll be a lot of help that AI or technology will provide the doctors by understanding the life history of the patient and getting access from various point of views, so that the right medicine is provided to the patient, looking at what symptoms he's going through based on his family history as well. And I think that will have a huge impact on the mortality rate of the world as well. I think we're getting towards in the right direction. I think that's my point of view. Anyone wants to add on that?
So I think that's correct. See, I think so. In the doctor's example, I think it is important for the doctor, because whenever the AI system is giving some health recommendation, it is important for the doctor to understand why such recommendations are coming, and explain it to the patient. That is why explainability becomes a big aspect for healthcare applications. Obviously, a doctor who understands a little bit of basics of AI can definitely understand and and explain those concepts better as compared to someone who is not. You can take the simple example of, say, driving an automatic car or versus a car with a gear. If you understand how the gears work and all those aspects, then you have a better balance about why the clutch and the brake and the accelerator are there are three things as compared to only one. Maybe there's just the accelerator and you just put it into automatic. Like, if you understand the system, you can appreciate more. Again, like even while using the laptop, like if you're running multiple programs, if you understand what is the difference between a CPU, the cache memory, and RAM and ROM, we can better do things as compared to if we don't understand that. We can still function with the laptop, but then I think the life of the laptop will be longer, and we can also use it much more optimized manner.
So just to quickly add on to that, Avik, I think what we just need to be very cognizant of is the time in the point in time lens, right? So we understand that because our lens provides us with that perspective. If I look at my 3-year-old son, he doesn't understand a world without internet. He has no frame of concept around connectivity or being, not connected. It's like people growing up today with social media. So as we move into progress with the rise of autonomous vehicles and digital assistants, etc., you will find this generation that actually they aren't able to comprehend a world where this does not exist. And as such, that mindset, that way of thinking will be almost completely lost, right? Yeah, just something to keep in mind with this.
I think there is something called fear of no connection or no internet, phony or something like that, that has also been there with the generation we are living in. Every time you're not connected, I think there is a bit of a fear in our minds that, oh, what if I lost my battery? What if I am not connected to the internet? I think that is also coming, and that's very prevalent in the next generation. As you said, your 3-year-old, my 6-year-old, they have the same challenge altogether. Okay, next question is from Gyanendra Dubey. It's a pretty long one. Hi Gyanendra, how are you? He's saying, as per my understanding, we're talking about AI, ML, but we are lacking with the training for professionals to create a pull in these areas. Training institutes are taking lots of money. Can we have alternative for this? Something like part-time involvement in these areas. Good question.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me take a quick stab at that. That's a very important point. There's talking about this gap, the skills gap when it comes to AI will be lacking by 2021, I think, or something like that, 500,000 AI developers, etc. That speaks to how AI is actually infiltrating so many industries. And this is where it is incumbent on industry to do more. All right, we cannot expect that the education system teaches the skills that are going to be required to seamlessly transition into the professional world, especially when it comes to AI. We need to do more from an industry perspective to help close the gap between the educational institutions and our organization in industry. And that's why programs like SAP Skills for Africa is such an important part of helping to bridge that gap between educational institutions and private industry, so that we can help facilitate and accelerate the deployment of AI-based skills into our organizations.
What do you think, Avik?
No, I think the skill aspect is definitely a very important aspect here. While I understand that what he was telling is very important, like the SAP program, and a lot of the corporates have such programs. But if we are looking for wider adoption, and say beyond a job role, if say what Laurence was taking, say if you use AI as in your mobile or in your laptop, which is giving you intelligent recommendation to use that. So we will also need the AI understanding, at least how to use the recommendations from AI is something which even a wider range of people have to understand. So I think, see, what you see today, say digital learning, IT skills was not there in school education possibly 20 years back, but now that has become a basic school skill. So I think 10 years down the line, or even maybe earlier, we might see IT skills and AI skills also being taught at starting at higher school levels, if not at primary, but at higher school levels. In so already in India we have that at the standard 10 levels we included at least some orientation of AI. I think Singapore also might have something on those lines, given that their education system is pretty strong and one of the leading one. So I think it has to inculcate at a more nascent phase.
Yeah,
Laurent?
so I'll address the school education system first, right? Yeah, so today AI Singapore, we do have we have created materials that we offer to the schools, starting from kids. That means those that are like 10, 11, and 12, and even we have created materials that the higher levels, the secondary schools, the polytechnics, the Institute of Technical Educations, they are now using our materials to basically expose students to AI, right? What is AI, basically, and so on. So eventually, I think AI would, or rather, data analysis skills, machine learning skills will actually go down into all levels of education. But I think this Dubey's question is as a professional, how can he upskill to get into this space? And that training institutes are taking lots of money. That means courses are expensive. There are actually a lot of resources that's available for very low cost or free that you can use to actually upskill yourself. And I always like to tell my audience, right, the best courses are often free. Those that will charge you any money usually may not be that great. Some of the best MIT or Stanford classes, for example, are uploaded to YouTube for free. You just need to have the passion and time to actually watch them and learn, right? So while all these resources are available for free, and some of them are very, very good, what you will find a challenge, right? The challenge is not finding the resources to learn. Besides online resources, there are great books and so on. The challenge you will find is finding a good project to work on to hone your skills. Going to all these online courses and so on, you get the standard data sets like Titanic or New York data, New York taxi, and so on, or airline arrivals. These are standards, but to learn to really build AI or machine learning project, you need to be a little bit more proactive. What I usually advise people who always ask me this question, right? Okay, where can I improve my skills? I say go to your grassroots, go to your community, offer your data analysis skills to these people. Often they have the data, but they don't have the money to pay system integrators or consultants to come in and build something useful for them. But if you have the time and you want to learn, offer your skills and use this real world data to build something useful for your community, and it becomes a win-win. Your community gets a useful product or solution, and you get to actually build a real world AI and machine learning project. So I would say ignore all the training institutes that's charging an arm and leg. Go for all the free ones. You just need to be very selective. And a lot of vendors actually, I'm not sure about, probably SAP, Microsoft, AWS, a lot of them have some of their courses that's free and online. So as long as you have an internet, you have the passion and the time, you can learn AI and machine learning. You just need to learn it correctly. Don't just take it as a black box that just because you know how to call a function, you are now an AI engineer. You need to understand the maths behind, right? So if you're not sure, in AI Singapore, we actually publish our AI apprenticeship field guide that we actually, have laid out like an 18 months program that you can follow. So you start with, learning about software engineering, learning about the cloud on Azure, then you learn about the maths and stats and so on before you even get to machine learning. So we have that, and it's really available to anyone to take and use. Yeah.
Okay, I totally agree with Lawrence, and I'll just put it a bit ahead of that with that example. So when I started starting my career, we didn't have much options in terms of software. Of course, training is available. First of all, training was a big issue because no one would train us. There was nothing available. Today, there are loads of YouTube courses. You get to hear from so many experienced professionals like three sitting on this show, and many other shows that you see live or you see recorded. So you get that training for free. The software component, in my good old days, a part of software for SaaS was $250,000. Today you can go and download R for free, Python for free. As Lawrence said, the good softwares are for free. SAP's point of view, we've got something called Open SAP, where you get a lot of free resources which can help you to actually grow your skills. And then finally, where to hone your skills is a very simple thing, which I usually say. You need to have the passion, and then you need to know how to define a problem, which you see around you. Now, once you see a problem around you, define it in plain English, and then start looking around for data for that. Once you find that, you then implement, you create models, do work on it, whether a model is required or not, and try and solve that problem. Once you've solved that problem, by solving that problem, you're not only solving a social, if it is a social problem, which I would imagine that's easy to do, you're not only solving a social problem, you're also learning and creating something on the table. And with that, your experience to actually deliver something is there. I have been asked this question almost on every episode, and my answer has been consistent. The data today is available everywhere. The softwares are free, and the training is free. All it needs is your passion, your willpower to actually do something, and that's it. That's all is required. You need to find out time from your busy schedule in order to be a good AI professional or a ML professional, or whichever aspect of AI you want to look at. You don't have to be going and attending a very expensive course. I would say those expensive courses are for people who do not understand technology, because they can be taken for a ride. But people who understand it, I think it's straightforward, easy. All you need to do is start, just kick start, and it's all there. So that's my point of view. I think anyone wants to add on to that, and please go for it. Okay, if not, then that was all in terms of topic related questions, which were quite good. Rest I will try to answer through other means which are not related to AI and society. So finally, I would like to ask the three gentlemen this question around, if you were to summarize AI and society in possibly a phrase or a sentence, what would you say? Rudy?
I think the future is all about what's next, right? If you miss it, you miss out. Don't miss out. it's an interesting time.
Avik?
I think it's all for society. I think we have seen AI being used for say commercial aspects, but I think when we look at society, I think there is a lot of opportunities coming up. It's waiting just to be explored. Unlimited opportunities to be explored. I think that's.
Laurence, what do you think?
I think AI as a technology will bring forward many opportunities for startups, companies, individuals to really improve society as a whole.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. I think it was a great session, and all of you were spot on like each time. So it's like 3 shows in a row, and so thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
bye. So, guys, that was Rudeon Snell, Dr. Avik Sarkar, and Laurence Liew. They were great, as always. It was great fun to have them on the show, and it was great fun for you to watch the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you like this show, then please follow me on LinkedIn so that you can get alerted when a new show is on. Similarly, if you're watching this on YouTube, please press the subscribe button and press the bell icon so that you're alerted when a show is on. I do a lot of shows on emerging technologies and artificial intelligence and machine learning and analytics and whatnot. So if you want to be, and then I think it'll be a good idea for you to tell me who you want to have on this show so that I can bring them on the show and we can all have a discussion with them and ask them questions directly. So please like, subscribe, press the bell icon, and follow me on Twitter. Me is Shelly, if you're watching on Twitter, and on Facebook, Cognitive Today, and on SAP India page where you're watching this. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'll see you next week with another show. Bye now.